This happened in the mid-afternoon of Saturday, December 22nd, 2007. I know because I wrote a live journal post about it and looked up the date I posted it. First, a little background. At that time I was 42 years old, but basically a fat bald white guy. I was visiting my mother in my hometown in west central Alabama. Very rural, quite small, about 1,800 people in total. That neighborhood was typically small, dying southern town. A bunch of older, retired, whose children have all moved away. My mother had just turned 70 at the time, and that was about the age of people in the neighborhood. Her house was on a corner by itself, and behind that was a small forest, and then cow pasture. So her lot was the back edge of the neighborhood. The block across the street from her held about 7 homes, 2 of which faced her house. The yards are big, and the homes were all built in the 60s. And everything is a bit more sprawly than a suburban subdivision. It was 3 days before Christmas, and we were getting ready to go to Tuscaloosa to attend a family Christmas party thrown by some cousins on my father's side. They had invited me and my mother, and we were bringing my uncle on my father's side with us, even though it was late December. This was Alabama, so it wasn't frigid outside by any stretch of the imagination. Chilly, but not cold. At least not to me. I was wearing a thin gray hoodie. My mother had gone to her parents' house to make sure they were okay, and I was outside at her house getting my car ready to accommodate 3 people, gifts and food. I noticed 2 teenage boys in hoodies similar to my own, walking slowly down the street. They didn't even register the first time, just people moving on the street. When they came up the second time, I glanced up to see who they were. It's a tiny town. Everyone knows everyone else. I didn't recognize them. Well, it was Christmas. I just assumed one of the neighbors had family over too. I think I even waved as they approached the second time. Then I locked the car and went inside to take a shower to get ready for the party. I note that they were still in front of my mother's house when I went inside. 20 minutes later, I'm dressed and ready and find my mother watching out the window. The police car, lights flashing, is parked at the house 1 block from my mother's. Seems that while I was in the shower, the 2 boys had walked past our house, turned the corner to the right, and walked past the across the street neighbor's house to the next house up, where Mr. B in his mid-70s was also outside in his yard. The 2 boys approached him and struck up a conversation. Then they pulled guns, robbed him in his own yard in broad daylight, and fled. Their first trip around the block was to choose a victim, apparently, and the second was to rob them. I got chills at the time, thinking that if I hadn't got inside at the right time, I might have been the one that was robbed, and I had no cash on me. What might they have done to me if I was their chosen victim? Didn't have what they wanted. What if my mother had come back just at the wrong time? Very scary. Update. Because of the small town, we heard through the grapevine that Mr. B and the cops already suspected who the boys were. There was a dogfighting ring that was discovered right in the same neighborhood on the next block up. The boys were connected to that group. An unrelated meth house turned up 1 block away from there, right across the street from the city elementary school. The town used to be ideal and safe, but the wrong element made that no longer true. My mother left that town 2 years later, after living there for 50 years, and now lives in a much, much safer neighborhood, in a much larger town, closer to where I live. Boys who cowardly robbed an old man at gunpoint in his own front yard, 3 days before Christmas in broad daylight. Let's never meet again. My uncle's father lives in Montana, which allowed us to get resident pricing on big game hunting tags. Once a year we would head to his property and hunt for a week. Usually, this would go off without a hitch, and if we were lucky, we would get the shot we were looking for. Unfortunately, not this year. Just like every year, we headed up to his father's property in northern Montana. That night, we headed out to go set up some hunting cameras so that we knew if there was a deer in the area. So we knew it was a good place to hunt. It must have been 1 a.m. and we were driving down this 2-lane dirt road, headed into the woods. We were always the only people on the road, since it was early in the morning. This particular time, we saw a headlight approaching from behind us, but thought nothing of it. We figured they must have been doing the same thing as us. After tailing us for some time, the headlights disappeared, which was strange since there was no turns on this particular road. A few seconds go by, and all of a sudden, the truck we see, driving on the shoulder to our right with the lights off. The shoulder was a small hill with brush and a fence fairly close to it. Definitely something that nobody should be driving on. The truck speeds up and gets back on the road, turns his lights back on, and speeds off into the darkness. This set off some major red flags, but we figured they were just impatient and wanted to get there before us. No big deal, or so we thought. We drove down the road for a few more miles until we saw taillights stop in the middle of the road. It was a truck that passed us a few miles back. They had set up traffic to completely block the road off, and there was another truck parked on the shoulder. We figured that they must have broken down, so we stopped. I had read an article online earlier this year about people in other countries that would make roadblocks to rob and kill people for their vehicles and belongings. I laughed and started to tell my uncle about this article, when two men from each of their truck jumped out of their vehicles and started to approach ours. My uncle always kept two handguns on shoulder holsters under his arm when we were out there doing these kinds of things. This saved our lives. Two of the men stayed at the tailgate of the truck parked at the road. The other two men came up to the window. At this point, my uncle had his right hand in his jacket, with his hand holding the gun. The men were extremely friendly and said that their truck on the shoulder had broken down and they were just helping him out. They asked if my uncle knew anything about cars and if you could come and take a look at it. My uncle refused, and this made the men angry. Both instantly drew pistols, and one of the men rounded the front of the truck towards my window. My uncle grabbed the man's gun that was pointed at him, which he forgot to load a round into, luckily for us. My uncle pulled his gun out and shot the man in the shoulder and slammed on the gas, driving on the left shoulder past of all the men. I looked back and could see the other three men gathering around the man my uncle shot. We drove and drove and drove for what seemed like an eternity without saying a word to each other. We drove back to my dad's house, and he told me to go to bed. He called the police and told them what had happened. They sent out 2 officers to the house to take his statement, and mentioned to him that they had quite a few reports of roadblocks being set up all around northern Montana. They were able to catch all 4 of the men who stopped us that night when they took the man who was shot to the hospital. This happened last summer. For a little bit of reference, I am a 25-year-old blonde female, about 5'4", about 110 pounds. I'm kinda lanky, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't be able to defend myself. I drive a lifted red Jeep Wrangler, and in the summer I am known in my town for my Jeep always being topless and doorless, with music blaring. I picture this like a yellow Corvette. Your eyes are automatically drawn to it, especially when there is no top or doors. I get a lot of attention when driving my Jeep, and usually just brush it off. All summer, the little neighbor kids across the street had been begging me for a Jeep ride. So knowing summer was almost over and the top will be on soon, I finally told them yes. I went and asked my mom, and we got ready. My boyfriend, we will call him Thomas, got in the driver's seat while I rode shotgun, and the kids in the back. We put on their favorite song, Uptown Funk by Bruno Mars, and we started cruising in the neighborhood. Now mind you, this is my own neighborhood, and I have kids in the back who do not belong to me, so of course we are going to be safe and go the speed limit. Out of nowhere, some man starts running, stumbling behind us, driving, yelling, and flipping us off. We can't hear what he's saying because of the music and wind, but judging by the middle fingers, we knew it wasn't good. Needlessly to say, I was freaked out. I'm scared that the kids heard something and we were going to tell their mom. Luckily, they were just singing away. Thomas, on the other hand, wasn't going to let this go, so after we dropped the kids off, he drove by the house where it happened. Sure enough, the man comes stumbling up to us, screaming. He told us to slow the fuck down in his neighborhood and turn down the music. He kept getting louder and he was slurring bad. It's 4 p.m. on a Friday. My music is fine and we were definitely not even speeding. He was just belligerent. I could smell the whiskey on his breath, and as he starts to get closer and closer to me, reminder, there is no door blocking him from me, and he was coming up to my side. I tell him to back up, and he doesn't. So Thomas told him. The man still doesn't listen. So he puts the Jeep in park and walks over. The drunk man staggers over to him and attempts to throw a punch but misses. Now Thomas isn't exactly a little guy. He has been a professional baseball player and is pretty fit. He comes over and throws a punch at this guy, and he just falls right over. I honestly don't even think he hit him that hard, but he was just so intoxicated. After that, he pretended like nothing happened and just walked away. I used to drive by his house daily to get to work, but never again. I'd rather take the longer way than deal with him. So drunk neighbor, let's not meet again. This happened to me when I was in high school. My family was going through some tough times, and my mom and I would get into fights about money and my social life. I felt I was doing more than enough for my age at the time, 16, going to school, working, giving her my paycheck for bills, and I was upset I wasn't allowed to go out on whatever little time I had off. On her side, she felt that it would distract me from going to school and work. One night I got home from work and had a particularly heated argument. I couldn't take it anymore, and I just left the house. I didn't have a plan as to what I was... In my mind, I just wanted to get away from my responsibilities, so I just started walking with no specific destination. I ended up walking for 2 hours. Despite walking for so long, I was only about 15 minutes from home because I was going in circles. By that time, it was 1 a.m., and I was walking on a sidewalk when a van pulled up in front of me and stopped on the side of the road. Now, this was a populated area on a 3-lane road just near the expressway, and there was mild traffic, so I didn't give much thought. As I got closer to the van, I see the driver roll down the passenger side window and is looking at me through the side mirror. I still didn't think anything of it. Maybe somebody was lost and was just trying to get directions. Now I'm right by the passenger door and the man calls me over. He said he was lost and was trying to get directions to the expressway. This is when I started not feeling right. The signs for the expressway were all around, and the expressway was literally 2 blocks away. My mind started racing. I literally pointed at the expressway, which was within sight, and started to walk away when he started to follow me and asked me where I was going and if I needed a ride. At this point, I'm regretting not having gone home already. I turned towards the man and tell him I do not need a ride, but thanks for the offering, and started walking away faster. The man doesn't say anything and starts to drive away, but as he passes me, I can see that he was looking at me through the side mirror again. Seeing him drive away, I started feeling relieved, but instead of him going towards the expressway, he takes a right turn and goes down the street. Now I'm freaked out. I started thinking that he might go all the way around the block just to get back on the main road and come engage me again. So as soon as I see the van go to sight, I booked it to the building that was to my right and hid behind some bushes. The building had a bunch of office spaces, and I could see through a lawyer's office, dentist's office, and another small business. I laid down on the ground and just waited. A couple of minutes passed, and through a small gap in the bushes I see his van rolling up towards the main road. The man had done as I thought. He went around the block just to get back on the main road. I saw him driving slowly, as if he was looking for me, and then I saw him take that right turn again. I knew for sure he was looking for me now. Again, after a few minutes, his van shows up again, but is driving slower, and comes to stop in front of the office buildings. After a few 10 seconds in which I thought he might get out of his vehicle to check the area, he started to drive off. The whole time I was hiding behind the bushes, I was freaking out knowing a stranger was actively searching for me. I waited for about 5 minutes after I saw his vehicle drive off, and I took off running home. To this day, I don't know what his intentions might have been, but I believe an intuition and mind told me that his motives were sinister. Because of that, let's not ever meet again. Hey guys, Weagles here. Thank you for watching my video. If you made it to the end of the video, awesome. If you didn't, awesome. So thank you guys. This is my new series called BlackScreen. This is my 2nd episode of it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know in the comments if you guys want me to continue this or not. It's just very cool to relax with a black screen. And yeah, just relax and better atmosphere. Last video I explained this at the beginning of my video, which took over a minute, so I'm sorry for that. I should have put it at the end of the video like I am right now. Other than that, I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments if you guys like it or not, and what you guys want me to do. Subscribe if you guys enjoy my content. You guys do not have to subscribe. It's just an option if you guys want to. I'm not going to ask for likes. All I'm asking for is feedback. So thank you guys so much. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thank you, and have a good one.